Takes
season.
us into the deep dive now, which the topic we wanted to cover on this one was actually the transition of Chelsea from last season to this season, because really, with the exception of Jorginho, there wasn't too much of a change as far as players wise go. And the whole, I mean, atmosphere, the play level, I mean, just everything is drastically different. So we kind of wanted to go into analysis of why that is and what did Sarri really implement in order to get this transition to fruition. So, kind of getting into
Let's.
that, we noticed with Conte, he was kind of more implementing this the 3-4-3 formation that saw them lead them to the title in 2016 to 2017, which was kind of a unique tactical development as far as the league goes for a three-man defense. But what Sarri does is he actually uses a 4-3-3 formation with like two number 10s there, where you see kind of like Hazard and Willian playing on that end. And
So
so,
what's interesting there is, um, not to rip on Conte because the 3-4-3 actually worked really well for him.
yeah,
Like if you remember, like when he switched to it, he went on like this insane winning streak. I think like one of the best in the Premier League's history.
yeah,
And after he did, like a lot of managers tried to copy him too,
yeah.
because it was so successful. But so it worked well in the first season, but then after that, it obviously dropped off.
Yeah,
And I don't know if it was a system or just the players weren't happy with it.
I
So
think that was coming to an atmosphere thing between him and the players. I
yeah,
mean that could be. I think that was one of the downsides, especially when you saw him leave. There was a lot of players that were calling for his basically to the club and the board for his resignation or his firing, I guess. Uh, and I feel like a lot of it came down to like personality, atmosphere, kind of like
yeah, I'd
a
say it was more due to
conflict,
that. Yeah.
internal conflict, less so than the actual formation. And that's why,
Yep.
actually, I think part of the reason why we don't see him at Real Madrid is because Courtois was saying, "I do not want him here. I came here to get away from him."
I don't
And
think Courtois has a say in that though.
I,
I really
I,
don't
I
think
think he
so.
has a decent part of it. He's
I
gonna put his
mean,
output. If you hear a coach that you were previously with that you really didn't like, I think you're gonna mention that to kind of the president, to the board, saying like, "Look, I don't want him. I don't think he'll be good for us, etc." kind of thing. He's gonna deny those claims, but whether he said it definitely personally for sure, or if not, like
I
maybe a
just
little
don't
bit
think he
to
has that
management.
say in the Real Madrid dressing room yet. Like, I know Ramos could say that. I know when
So
Ronaldo was there, he could definitely have that kind of influence. I don't know if Courtois has that yet.
let me clarify. They're not gonna do what he says, but he will voice it, and they're gonna probably consider it, like take it under consideration. I think.
Maybe, maybe.
Because otherwise, Antonio Conte seems like a decent grab as a coach, especially for the job, right? When it's kind of this part of the season.
But I don't think he fixed Real Madrid's style of football. Like, I don't think they want another Mourinho. They've already been through
He's got
that, and I
more of an
think
offensive style than Mourinho, though. I
a
mean,
little bit, but he's still on the defensive side, I'd say.
I think he was defensive a bit with Chelsea because they really did lack the offense, though. And I don't know if
I mean,
that's
he got rid of the offense by getting rid of Costa.
yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, that was a huge hit for us. I regret that one, especially since he was just so good for us, and that's the big difference between the two seasons. But yeah, but anyways, we're getting off topic. Back to as far as sorry, as far as implementing what he's done this year to really change it around, and you've seen kind of the likes of Barkley, who's been a huge addition as far as I mean, he came out of nowhere. But specifically, sorry
Yep.
yourself, he implements a 4-3-3 formation with two number 10s, which are generally like Willian and Hazard. And what he really has emphasized is a couple things. One is in the defensive third, he's kind of pushing them to do a lot more like a high press, a lot more pressure kind of thing, especially in the defensive third. And the other one is he's really been pushing back to a basics, which is kind of the three-man like run, like a third man run, which is kind of
Yeah.
taught at youth levels. And it for anyone who's not familiar, you basically what happens is you get someone who's say like on the center back position who will then pass it up behind one of the defensive lines, whether that be like the first defensive line, which could be kind of like your midfield forward scenario. So you push it somewhere into the midfield, and then they pass it back, which then feeds to a third man running through into the open space. Or what you can also see, which I can't remember if this was Crystal Palace that is a good example, or PAOK, where you have someone from the center back position who feeds it off to like our central striker, so like Murata or Giroud, which then they feed it off backwards, which then feeds to a third man running, kind of like Hazard or Willian going up the line, and I believe it was Hazard in this case.
Yeah.
But
So basically, the trick with this is Sarri loves to fizz balls around the field because he loves to move the opposition around.
mhm.
And this third man run that you're talking about is basically where someone fizzes a ball into the striker. And the key for this is someone who has really good control of the ball. Like at
Yeah,
Napoli, he loved to do this with. He had Mertens, he had Hamsik, he has Insigne. He had like the perfect players for this. And this is why he plays all his attacking players at Chelsea. He
yeah,
plays Barkley, he plays Jorginho, he plays Willian, he plays Hazard. Conte sometimes would bench some of those players because he
yeah,
wanted a more defensive setup. But he loves that fizzing of the ball on the ground quickly to your player so the opposition's caught out, and then you do a quick 1-2-3 like you said. So you fizz it to the forward, he quickly lays it back, and then you have one of the wingers running down the sides,
yeah,
and then the person who got it laid back, like usually a midfielder, like maybe it could even be Conte this season because he's playing further forward, or it could be Barkley,
yeah.
and then they either feed it through the lines to those wingers or they feed it up to the striker, and that's like Chelsea's main tactic under Sarri, and it works because it catches the opposition out. Like it's very hard to stop fast passing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a couple things like caveats to it. Yeah, one thing, first off, it doesn't have to necessarily be passed back. It can also be a first time like touch right off to the third man as well.
Yeah. I remember
Um,
there was this phase in games where every single game Giroud and Hazard would have like an assist or a goal together,
yeah.
where like Giroud would flick it to Hazard, and Hazard after a while he said like Giroud was the best number 9 he ever played with because he
Oh
gave him
yeah,
so many assists.
it's
And
true.
that's the kind of feeding that the system gives you, and that's what Sarri loves to do.
Yeah, and basically the tactic allows you to kind of like break through your first defensive line and whilst like disorganizing your second defensive line as well, which is kind
Yep.
of a nice scenario. And as long as you're able to keep the the only caveat to this is the pace of your passes in the sense that you need to keep high, quick passing and quick build up. And if you
Yeah.
don't do that, then that's where they get caught off guard, and then now there's an issue with it where the system doesn't work too well.
Yeah. And the players have taken it on board. That's the biggest thing. If the players can't take it on board, then it doesn't matter. Either
Yeah.
if they don't enjoy it or if they're not good at it, you're going to do poorly. And I feel like the players he's used at Chelsea are perfect for it. Like he plays Barkley, as you said.
hmm
He plays Jorginho in a deeper role instead of Conte, so he can play those deeper passes.
Yeah, and you've seen actually N'Golo Conte actually be able to now move forward with it, and Barkley's
Yeah.
flourished under this. And it really comes down with they're able to, at least what's nice is you can move. Chelsea needs to move the ball with pace and basically with speed and keep that tempo because otherwise, if they're too slow, then you're going to see defense like kind of close down on the players. But with Conte, at least we've noticed that he's been able to move up and he's pacey too, and he's got an engine in him. He can just run forever. So like it's worked
Do,
well for him, kind of freeing him up and moving him forward.
do you think the players have taken this kind of attacking tactic more on board because of Conte's like last year's coach Conte's defensive tactics? So they were like, this is a breath of fresh air, or do you think it's just that Sarri
Yeah,
is
so that's definitely one of the reasons I would say, one of the reasons I would attribute to it. It's a nice change, fresh air, where you're now playing from a defensive scenario, more style to an offensive style, and uh, that's all what they wanted to do. That's what Hazard wanted to play, and he's been absolutely in top form as a result of it. Uh, and the other one I think has just been kind of like an atmosphere change. I mean, one, he's lifted some of the bans that were strict, like we mentioned earlier in prior podcasts, strict bans that Conte, prior manager, had put on the team. So one that kind of boosts the morale as well of them, and
yeah.
kind of them. I think honestly, just a little bit of that with a better morale and them buying into it, really allowed them to quickly pick up this kind of like sorry ball, and as a result, do well with it. Now I think they're going to continue to get better as it goes on, but at this stage, I mean, you can't really ask
It's
more from.
astounding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a complete 180 at this point.
Yeah, it's I don't think I ever expected this. I expected him to struggle a lot during the first few games, to be honest,
Yeah,
because it didn't seem like it was a great summer for you guys, even though you got in the new coach.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you guys would take a while to settle in, but like
They
he's just
they
come in with
he came in
stormed the Premier
late
League.
too. He came in really late as far as
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
I can only imagine maybe if he came earlier how it would have went, how much better they could potentially be. But if you, I guess if you wanted to sum up this whole change, Sarri's done like three things basically. He's changed the formation, he's repositioned players, while all the while placing an emphasis on quick, short passing moves to play through the pressure that's put on them. And honestly, it's worked well. I mean, go back to basics, and sometimes that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of how they've changed.
Yeah, and I mean that basically recaps or that covers what I've noticed at least as far as their play from last year to this year. And
Um,
other than that, did you have any other comments or things you've noticed or you want to mention?
Not particularly, but if you guys have stuff you want to mention that you think we missed, because I'm sure we missed some stuff, then
Oh
like let
yeah,
us know in the comments.
yeah, exactly. Let us know in the comments down below if you're on YouTube, if you're on another platform, whether they have comments or not. And
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to find your comment among like the thousands of comments we get, but if we do, we'll definitely reply.
exactly, we'll try and find time in our busy schedule in order to respond. Uh, but other than that, do you want to do the awards, or are we calling it on this? We ran a little bit over time that we.